Hey y'all, picking up with Ferdinand Magellan, right where we left off. Two things I want to point out. First, some teachers like to show that Ferdinand Magellan's name rhymes with melon. Magellan, melon. Magellan went around the world, melons are round. Magellan round, melon round. If that helps you remember Magellan, melon, round, around. Okay? And now another thing. This is a picture of how Magellan died. He died in the battle in the Philippines over here. And this is a picture of him getting clubbed to death by a Filipino warrior. And this is going to be a recurring pattern. I want you to think about how dangerous this job of exploring is. He's not the only one who's going to die while out exploring new areas. Got your information. Now, next we're going to talk about Ponce de Leon. He sailed for Spain. His goal was to find gold and land. And legend says that he was also looking for the fountain of youth, a magical fountain that would keep you young forever. I don't know if he was really looking for that. You're going to look at some sources and decide that for yourself later this week. And his main accomplishment was that he claimed Florida for Spain. Remember, these Europeans are racing each other to go get to these areas to find the gold and trade the spices. So once they start finding gold in these islands, when Christopher Columbus shows up, then Ponce de Leon also wants to go and spread out and find more gold and claim more land for his country. Now, Ponce de Leon actually ended up dying as well because he was hit in the leg with a poison arrow when he was attacked by Native Americans. So that might even be worse than Magellan, right? Now, for your map, this is the last one I'm going to show you. You should figure out how to do your maps after this. Find the island that he started from. Notice he went up to Florida, around here, over near Mexico. Notice none of these places are labeled. But what you can start is using the landforms and the shapes of the landforms as your landmarks. Okay, so I know Florida looks like this. Find it on both maps. Cuba's an island completely surrounded by water. Okay, so I can start finding where I am on both of these maps, even if it's not labeled. All right, let's move on. Next explorer, Hernando de Soto. This might be important to us. He was the first European, the first white person to cross the Mississippi River. Sailed for Spain. His goal was to find more gold. Well, I'm starting to see pretty quick. These Spanish are all about the gold. And accomplishments. The first European to cross the Mississippi River. And after fighting and enslaving Native Americans, he died in the wilderness and was buried on the Mississippi. Here's a picture of him being buried on the river. Wow, this is like the third explorer in a row who died. Dangerous job. Make sure to get his route on your map. He goes up into Florida and he kind of just wanders around looking for gold. That brings me up to our next person, La Salle. Now, La Salle sailed for France, and France saw that Spain was getting very rich by all the gold they were finding. But France found something else they could make money off of. Furs, like beaver furs that they could make coats and hats out of. So their goal was to find a trade route for France to trade furs. They would get furs from in here in this area, and then they needed to find a river they could go out back to the ocean to get back to France. And this is the path of his journey. He actually found that the Mississippi River connects to the ocean, and you came back to France that way. So he claimed all of this land for France, and that was his goal, to find the trade route. And his accomplishment was to claim all the land for France. Now, he had a pretty successful journey, so he returned for a second journey. But after fighting with natives and being robbed by pirates and crashing two ships, his men turned on him and killed him and left his body for animals to eat. That might even be worse than the poison darts. All right, make sure to show La Salle's journey down the Mississippi. Next, we have Henry Hudson. He sailed for the English and the Dutch. England is this island up here, still part of Europe. And they thought, all those other folks are down here and they can't quite get to Asia. They're finding other things. We still want to get to Asia, and I think we can go over America. So their goal is to find a northwest trade route to China. Well, he never found his route. And his men got so mad that they sent him out to sea alone. And he was never heard from again. This is him and his family in a little lifeboat, left out, and they were never heard from again. Okay, freezing to death out on the ocean, maybe starving to death, I don't know. That might even be worse than being eaten by animals. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how to get some information or use this information that we know to get further information. So many questions are going to be like this. Look at the map below. Which two European nations, France, Spain, or England, do you think made the biggest impact on Louisiana history and culture? And to answer that question, I have to ask myself, can you find Louisiana in the Mississippi River? So if I need to find which countries went to Louisiana, my first step is to find Louisiana. Here's New Orleans, so I know it's there. You look at the same place on the map, Florida, New Orleans, right here. So that means this is French, so the French is one. And I see this dark line. The dark line means Spanish, and Spanish is another. So the two cultures that had the biggest impact are France and Spain. The British people, they didn't even come close. Now I show you this because this is an example of the types of questions that you are going to see on tests. You're going to take what you do know, where Louisiana and New Orleans is, and combine it with new information that you get from documents. Okay? So this is just something to think about. One more thing that I think will help us answer this question, why we don't really talk about what happened to the Native Americans. When Europeans came, they brought lots of foods and animals with them that were great and helped the land and people, but they also brought many diseases, and many Native Americans, in fact millions, became sick and died. And so while many of the Europeans got very rich off of their voyage to the New World, many Native Americans lost their lives. So there's some big impacts. Some are good, some are very, very bad. Europeans did not treat the Native Americans respectfully. When they wanted the land, they just took it. A discussion question. This is going to be more something to think about while you finish your exit ticket. La Salle, Magellan, De Soto, Ponce de Leon, and others died on their quest for God, glory, and gold. Would you be willing to go on a quest to a new land? Do you feel they were successful? I ask these questions because they died, and some of them, like Christopher Columbus, never found what he was looking for. But we're still studying them 500 years later, so they became very famous. So I want you to think about, is this success or did they fail? All right, that's all for today. I'm going to be talking to you later this week.